Edwards. Mr. Steingart.
Here.
Ms. Vedder.
Josh is getting settled. We'll go to reports. Art, so you can get underway.
Thanks. So just some real quick items from the grants department. Our Homeland Security reporting third quarter has been accomplished aside for our round one state interoperable communications grant. We are in the process of finalizing our final claim for that. We anticipate that claim being roughly $350,000. It needs to be accomplished by the end of the month, so we're working on that. The reporting will be completed at the time on that one grant. We're working with the Fire Bureau and DPW on some new submissions, specifically the State Farm Public Safety grant program that's being made available, and that's with the Fire Bureau, and the Household Hazardous Waste program with DPW. Also, our grant writers working with the Literacy Volunteers of America and pursuing some funding for, I believe, a new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. DPW recently notified us that they received $2.8 million in the SAM award for the flash flooding. So we'll be meeting with the commissioner today to talk about that process, how that's going to go. The electrical licensing board has been transferred out of our department. We're grateful about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Funding opportunity notifications continue to be routed, and we are now going to start to explore potential funding sources for our Children's Advocacy Center.
Nice.
There's
Questions?
more going on, but I'm not
That's
gonna
the
keep
highlights.
going.
You're good.
That's the highlights.
Any
Thank you.
questions for Art? Thank you. You're free to meander if you wish.
Thank you.
Josh, would you like to?
Good stuff. I'll talk about the fiscal stress report first. The attachment in the, I won't go through this whole thing, but there's a lot of numbers, but if you look at the first page, the controller, if you recall, last year initiated a project that to aim to allow elected officials and management to see kind of where the controller felt they were on a fiscal stress rating. So for 2012 was the first year they had done that, but if you could see, they've gone back and recalculated some figures for 2011. So that, and on that first page you can see we were actually in what they would consider moderate fiscal stress for the 2011 fiscal year, which just came out. We didn't really know that until just now, and so there's three levels. There's a significant fiscal stress, moderate, and susceptible. So you can see the trend has gone. We were in moderate fiscal stress for the 11 fiscal year, susceptible to fiscal stress in 12, and we have now fallen off and don't have no designation. If you're not in one of those three categories, you just say no designation.
Yay.
So you can see in that box on the top right on that first page, you can kind of see their metrics on how they grade all the municipalities, and you can see for the most part almost all those categories are trending in the right direction when you compare 12 to 11. Fund balance is going up, operating deficits are dropping, cash ratios are going up, short-term debt issuance is going down. So you can kind of see things are headed in the right direction on almost all those categories. Page 2 is basically all their mathematical calculations, but for this year they've also added some, I think, some useful graphs. You can kind of see for all their categories where you're headed and the trends. So you can kind of see the fund balance of the general fund's gone up from 2.6 of expenditures all the way up to 12.2 of expenditures between 11 and 13. And then you can go through the various charts where they're all generally trending in the right direction. And then if you skip it in a couple pages, they go into with the bar charts, which is kind of useful. It kind of gives you a comparison on where you rank from a statewide perspective and in a regional perspective and with similar counties. And you can kind of see for like in the indicator 1, we're pretty much in line with counties statewide and actually ahead of the Mid-Hudson regional counties with our fund balance level. Likewise, with the operating surplus deficits, we're ahead of all the counties on an average in the state and also the Mid-Hudson regional counties. So I think that's a useful tool to kind of see where, I mean, these rankings by themselves are somewhat hard to grasp, but we can kind of see where you're ranking across the state. It gives you kind of some perspective on how we're doing in relation to the counties across the state. So I think just generally, I mean, there's a lot of numbers to digest in here, but the general picture is we've kind of gone from being this moderate fiscal stress to susceptible to not having a designation, and which is certainly good, and I think hopefully the numbers even improve. I mean, you can't, there's no other designations, but I think there's still a percentage there that you can kind of continue to improve upon. So I think as we're seeing, hopefully all those continue to improve. But if there's any questions specific to that, I'd be glad to answer them if I can, but.
I'm happy. Janet,
Yeah, I reviewed this too, and it's good news, building up the fund balance. I think that I had some questions about the non-spendable piece because I think the fund balance now is at 27.5, is that what it is?
Yeah, I forget, it's been the 27 something.
There's a piece for the ACC, right? And then the non-spendable piece is to bring it down to a lower percentage. I know, Josh and I had a conversation about some of the school districts keeping that higher fund balance and.
Yeah, you've been asking me what, I think if you've been following some of the press, they've criticized some of the school districts for having excess fund balance. I certainly don't think we're in that position by any means, but I don't know how you would, I don't know how the controller, if there's a cutoff that you have
But
30-50% of fund balance.
The 27 fund balance, the non-spendables are like the ACC, money that would need to come out of that?
Yeah, there's 4 million and change in there for non-spendable due to the ACC that for the first time they recorded. Staff didn't necessarily 100% agree with all of what they did, but the auditors ended up recording that as basically a loan from the general fund in layman's terms to the nursing home.
You know, I think it's great, I'm sorry, Sandy, were you done?
Yeah, I had another couple of questions.
I think it's great that we're trying to increase our fund balance, but in my personal opinion, I still think that we're not, because we're living within the cap, we wanna live within the cap, we're still not providing the services to our constituents that I think they deserve. For example, infrastructure, we're still way, way behind on our roads and our bridges, and the list goes on and on. So we can keep saying we're saving money, and it's a good thing, but we're not providing the services, in my opinion, that we should be.
I think you've seen a draft of my budget message.
I swear I haven't.
Glad to see you're willing to go on the record saying that.
No, I agree. I mean, generally, I mean, I've had this conversation with a lot of people across the state. It's, living within the cap just crowds out what we call discretionary services, public safety,
Right.
roads and bridge infrastructure. And you're basically forced, if you're going to stay at the cap, to fund all your benefit increases and mandate increases. It doesn't leave any other discretionary money to kind of go around. So.
I'm sure you had that discussion with the other county managers and
Yeah.
executives
Right.
in Buffalo. We had the discussion at our business meeting in Buffalo.
Do you have more?
But it's not, my understanding, I mean, the issue you're pointing out is the tax cap, not the fund balance. We don't have excess fund balance that we should be spending on something else. It's not like what the school districts did.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, but-
I think if you look at the recommended ranges, there's 5 to 10 or 50%, depending on whether it's GASB or the controller's office. We're comfortably within those ranges. We're by no means well beyond that, where our savings account is well in excess of what we should have.
But Ira, what I mean by that also is that if we didn't have to live within the cap, I think that there are so many other things we could be doing and more services we could be providing to our constituents. For example, like I said, I just pointed out, whether it's public safety or it's roads and bridges, we're way behind.
Yeah, but
And
you have to pay for it with the tax increase, not excess fund.
Yeah.
If I may ask a question, okay, is there a way to get between the two things? The fund balance has grown, which is a great thing, because that improves our credit scores on many things, which allows us to borrow at a lower rate, and at the same time, if we took, say, a very small portion of what we've put in the fund balance to have it line up with, say, a capital project that we know is dedicated to maybe roads and bridges, but, and there's the caveat to me that must be, it would have to then be equally divided among the towns and the districts as far as whose roads getting fixed.
Well,
And I think that's a way to maybe work our way through here, because our constituents all need, and most of our constituents only get their roads and their
Exactly.
bridges.
And-
Okay, and maybe your communications, but, to say all the roads down there need repair and those ones aren't traveled as much, that would be a very sticky issue.
No, but Katie,
That's not our
No, no.
decision, that would be up to
I
Ed.
was just gonna say, when we have our capital budget meeting next week, but Ed always says that he fixes the roads that are in the most needed repair first because of whatever issues, whether it's liability or whatever. He doesn't say, I'm gonna fix all the roads in Liberty because I wanna go to Liberty. No, he has a list. And when we have our capital budget next Thursday, ask him about how he does that. He has a formula. I have to fix this bridge because this is the bridge is something's gonna happen on this bridge we won't be able to maintain unless we, so he has a list. He has a 5-year plan.
I'm not
Yeah.
begrudging his plan, my concern is that his plan, it might be a 5-year plan, but I have never seen any documentation in the years that I've been here that says, okay, these are the roads in the next year I'm gonna fix, I'm not gonna put a finger in the dike. These are the roads that I'm gonna fix the following year, not
does.
for the
Oh, I mean,
I haven't
He's done reports
seen
on that.
the
Yes.
road list, I've seen
Every
the
month,
alligator
every month we get a
and-
report on that.
Yeah, we've
Every
had
month.
presentations, yeah,
Yearly.
for 3 years already, yeah.
Well, but,
Yeah.
I mean, we've had major
Yeah.
presentations.
The whole point is, Ed is the Commissioner of Public Works. He's the one who has the expertise in these
Right.
areas.
Mhm.
He should make the decision as to which roads and bridges get repaired first.
Right.
That's his job, that's what we hired him to do. We have to let him do his job.
Thank you.
For Josh on the,
No, I just think that, looking at the long-term plan, like Kathy says, the dilemma is the capital improvements and the roads and bridges. But I think we have to, instead of floating along, we have to enter into a comprehensive plan for long-term and see. I know departments come in and they make requests and, I was just looking at the comptroller's report here with the county comparisons and what our expenditures and revenues are for certain departments. I think we need to start really drilling down into it instead of floating along. Our fund balance is up, which is good, but we have expenses that are gonna come down, in the next couple of years. And without the revenue coming in, I think we have to put it into really discuss, the long-term picture. 'Cause we'll be at the same place next year.
You just have to keep in mind too, of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but of the 27 million, about 11 million of that is the landfill reserve fund.
It's about
It's about
7 or
8.2.
8, because we've been paying
I thought it was like
1.1
8.2.
million
And it's
of
designated.
principal
Okay,
every year.
right.
I think we have one more payment in 15 and then we're done.
Oh, that's right, we took the,
So we'll be,
5
I
million
think
out
at the end of
from,
15, it'll be in, I think 6 and change would be
Okay.
6 million and something would be the final number that would be in that. But yeah, as of 13, it probably has 8, and then I'll have 2 more million coming off that.
Okay.
Ira,
I think it's a good discussion, but I don't want to lose track of the fact that what Josh is reporting is this controller's finding about fiscal stress. I think we took issue with his initial finding last year. We were fractions of a percentage point from not being in fiscal stress to being in susceptible and moderate. And I think the direction we're moving in is something we shouldn't lose track of, and I think it's an excellent report for us. There are neighboring counties, I think, I like that on my desk, but I think Orange and or Ulster are both now on the list, and we're off the list, so I think it's a good thing.
So if I could just ask, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I think the one thing, which does get back to the issue of roads and bridges, I know, during the economic crisis, we had a bond, and, we really had no choice. But, if you look at the indicators, the one indicator where we are a little above is, debt service as a percent of revenues. And that's, I think, reflects, the need that we had to go out and borrow to do that. So you know, moving forward, we have to, I think, consider other options.
Yeah, I think we
No, I
have to
agree. I
continue to
mean-
be diligent. I'm sorry, John.
That bonding can't be the total, there's gotta be some other supplement to the bonding at some point to be able to make it more sustainable. Or even if you were to consider fund balance, that's a one-time, you don't necessarily have that every year to use, so it'd just be a one-time fix. You really have to have some sort of plan on how to have a dedicated revenue source for
You want a long-term fix, not a
for
short-term fix.
improving. And just on that debt service, I mean, I don't know, obviously all counties don't have landfills, but probably half of our debt is still associated with the landfill, so it kind of skews those numbers a little bit. I mean, certainly, so there's other counties that do have landfill debt in here, but we're getting compared with counties that don't have any.
Understood.
So I mean, when I looked at that, it seemed a little high, but I think that's probably a large reason why we're significantly higher than the average of all counties.
So if you could like pinpoint what actions that we took to build up that fund balance, because I think, you know, from what we hear, the long-term needs are gonna be a problem, you know, the long-term, costs. I know there's also, you know, we had a discussion about the vacancy piece, and, you know, we have a number of vacancies that are open. What, does that percentage of that, number fiscally go into the, in the balance? I think it's like $4.5 million or something for the vacancies.
If they were unfilled all year.
Yeah, if they're unfilled all year.
Does that
Yeah.
whole number go in? Do you account?
Depends on whether it also generates revenue. Some vacancies actually generate service units and billable revenue. Some vacancies, we can draw down federal money or state money. So that number would be reduced by the, you know, offset for the revenue. But for some, like DPW, they're 100% county share, and the patrol, sheriff's department, that type, they're all 100%.
But I think whatever savings was there would end up
And end up in the fund
in your
balance, yeah.
bottom line, along with all revenue shortfalls or expense increases elsewhere, that all gets netted out, and at the bottom line, you end up having a change in your fund balance. All those factors
Yeah.
together would contribute to that. I think if we remember, if the auditors were here, I think due to some of the conservative budget, we had some significant revenue increases over what we had budgeted prior year that really helped, like our auction proceeds went up a lot higher than what we had budgeted. So some of our revenue accounts, I think if this prior year, our expense number was almost within $100,000 or a few $100,000 of what we budgeted, but our revenues were significantly higher
There you
than
go.
what we had budgeted, so it really,
So
that's
those were
what
some
kinda.
of the actions,
Yeah.
the revenues that came in that, helped that fiscal.
Yep.
Janet, you wanna do the budget overview?
Basically, we're on target to meet our deadline for the operating budget on the 20th. Our goal is to come in within the tax cap.
That's a good goal
That was
to have.
tricky.
That's a good goal to have.
But basically, between the growth factor and the allowable tax levy, we're able to increase like a little over $1.1 million. And it comes out to be about a 2.11% when all's said and done. All the factors are in there.
A 2.1 levy increase. I mean,
Levy increase, yes.
I think we were running, just looking at some math, due to some assessment growth in the county, the actual property tax rate increase would be, I think, about 1.7% if we were to,
Yes.
if we were to meet the tax cap, so that's also, we're seeing, I think our assessments have dropped there through the recession, so we're finally seeing the assessments turn around,
Start
which
to
is
come
good
up.
too. So even if the average property owner, even though it would be at 2.1, but actually only see something on the order of about 1.7. And obviously this year, if the adopted budget does meet the cap, the star eligible homeowners would be receiving a check from the state for their
$9.
exactly, whatever their taxes went up, their county taxes went up by.
Right.
So,
Some people have already gotten a check.
Review that, 2.1 is the cap.
2.1 is the
2.11.
change in the levy,
Change the levy.
2.1
which
is the.
doesn't correspond to the change in the rate.
So that would be about $1 million, right?
Yeah.
2.1 is the
1.1
change
million.
in the levy,
Yes.
Yeah.
due to.
but because of the increased assessed value,
Yes.
It's going to be,
It actually, that 2.11 converts to about an average county rate increase, a tax rate increase of about 1.7. I mean, obviously every town is gonna be different, but the average county tax rate would be 1.7.
thank you.
Any questions for Janet? More to come on that.
Good target, that. That's all I got.
Ira, you're on.
I've handed out my report. It's pretty self-explanatory and pretty similar to what we've been talking about last month and all year.
I definitely like your top number.
Right, that's the number. Interestingly enough, we received our first payment 2 days ago for October sales tax, which was over $2.5 million, which represented about an $8,500 decrease from last year, but which is pretty insignificant. So we remain up over $1.2 million from last year in sales tax.
What are we selling?
The leaves.
I mean, that'd be room tax. I mean,
Audit?
we'll have to
Angela?
Just briefly, I've been working with Lori in County Attorney's Office, going through contracts, trying to make sure the verbiage spells out what the deliverables are gonna be, what our payment methodology is gonna be. Starting to prepare for year end and working with John Household right now, trying to reconcile our assets through September, through the first 3 quarters, tagging and reconciliations on that. Been working with grants to finalize a couple of the projects. We're looking forward to some of those grants finally going away. Working with Shannon and Lou and Sue Skinner, Janet, and my staff, we've been working on the process of things from requisition right through to payment, and looking at the general ledger definitions, trying to clarify and streamline, which will help them with their budgeting. Janet, I think, put out a list of the new definitions to go along with this next year's budget, so that is gonna help, I think, in the budget process, and also with change orders and such. Do you agree?
yeah.
Yeah, so we've been working on that a lot, meeting at least once a week in the test room, and trying to really streamline some of our processes within the New World system. And as of right now, we've gone through September 31st, we've processed almost 35,000 invoices. We have not paid by either way of a duplicate voucher or a reduced voucher, just under 145,000 so far through September 30th.
Thank you. Questions for Angela? Okay, we have a couple of resolutions, one to modify the county budget.
Motion.
Moved by Jean, second Ira. Questions for Josh? All in favor? Any opposed?
4-0.
Okay, the second one is from MIS for Community Services, to execute an agreement with DocuTech. Moved by Jean, second Ira. Woman's not here, but does anybody have any questions for Josh on that? Looks pretty routine. All in favor?
4-0.
Okay, that's the end of our resolution. Public comment? Ken?
Years ago, I read about how counties were benefiting when the prices of gas were going up. I think you're gonna start seeing your sales tax start to fall off as the price of gas has been going
Yeah,
down.
last year, that's a good point.
We've been enjoying that gas pump out of our pockets, but the county's gonna suffer on the income on that side until that balances out and gets steady again. So and it doesn't make up. There's no way of making it up. As far as the stress goes, it's been really 2 legislatures starting in 2008 when we started really hitting the skids on income, that the legislators have been diligent about trying to keep the prices down, the cost of governing down, and it reflects in this latest report that you got as far as the stress level goes. Good work on your part. And I'll go back to that 2% cap. The only way we can get past that 2% cap and get those services that you and I need all the time is you're gonna have to override it. Unless there's a will to override it, we're still gonna be struggling with our services.
Your public comment? Motion to adjourn?
Jean.
Kitty? Thank you.